Thank you for being here. We have, for those of you who did not get these handouts that were upstairs before, I will put them down here at the corner so you can take them with you. We are very happy that you are here because what we said is to be compliant when it comes to the typical goods that we move, and we move a lot of different goods. We do not do it on our own. We are actually in the middle of a very long supply chain. So when you have the entire plan up to the patient, when you talk about pharmaceuticals, we are in the middle. So I'm very happy to introduce a very distinguished panel. We have here, first of all, from MSD, Merck, I should say, we have Ruud. We have Mark from DHL Global Forwarding. We have Enrica Calonghi, who is for Air France, KLM and Martinair, our director for pharmaceutical solutions, and Armand, who is the director for information management, also for the group. In the room, we have even more experts for you, because it is, I believe, one of the most complex challenges that you will find. We are looking for a protocol, but also for an end-user solution. And in the previous session, I heard a question about which one is more important. They are equally important, because without a protocol, we cannot exchange data. Without a solution, it has no value. So we have some more people here from the entire supply chain in the room. We have more experts. We have business analysts. We have what have you. I would now like to hand over to Enrica, who will take you through the problem setting stage.
Okay. I was trying to get your microphone, also forgot it. Okay. Thank you everyone for being here. For us, it's an important challenge that touches us, that touches the way we want to live in this planet. Everybody of us has somebody at home who is sick, who is taking medicines, somebody we know that is under some cure or therapy. And we want those people, those around us, that is getting the right medicine, not something that is counterfeited and something that may be damaging us instead of curing us. For this reason, I think that it's in our DNA to say, okay, we want this to be a challenge. We want this to be something that we want to collaboratively working on. And for these reasons, we thought, okay, to ask everybody what is the challenge for us and what is it that is touching us. We ask customs. We ask, okay, what do you think is the challenge? And their answer is, okay, how can we prevent this from happening? How can we make sure that we stop it at the source of everything, and it's not coming till the end of the journey, and we know that it's counterfeited. We ask ourselves as an airline operator, because we want to know, and the DHL as well as an operator itself. We want to be sure that what we deliver is the right things to do, and we want our people also to know that they are not involved in any illegitimate transportation. We ask our customer, Merck, what is a challenge for you?
Thank you. So the big challenge for us as a company is that we don't own the supply chain end to end. So we as a pharma manufacturer, we ship to our customers. Our customers are wholesalers, distribution centers everywhere in the world, and that's where we lose control. That doesn't mean that our medications end up at patient level, where it's still our brand on the package, and it's still a patient. So we feel the responsibility to stretch that, although we don't own the goods physically or financially anymore.
And Mark, what is a challenge for DHL Global Forwarding?
Yeah, for us, as we are also in the middle of that supply chain, both before the shipment get airborne and after the shipment get airborne, for us it's really difficult to recognize on the outside of the packaging if the true product is on the inside. So for us, we are already having very robust processes in place to maintain and to monitor that specific process, but really to identify if a shipment has been tampered with or if it's counterfeit. For us on the outside, we cannot see it there. Of course, we also share a lot of data. We also have a lot of data for ourselves. But what for us is also difficult is to breaking down those data silos and get one infrastructure that we can all use for the better, that we can ensure that we have real, true, genuine product inside.
Yeah.
So one question that you should ask yourselves: how, if you get medication, you take a medication, how would you verify it yourself right now? Would you feel comfortable taking it?
Yeah. And there are some numbers that are critical. I think that Mark, we share it before this presentation. I mean, how big is this phenomenon? How many lives are depending on this?
So maybe that's a question to the audience. How much money you think is involved with counterfeit medicines on every year? Just give me a guess.
30 million.
Excuse me?
$30 million.
It's a little bit higher.
30 billion.
We're talking about $200 billion per year of only counterfeit medicines. It's causing about 1 million people every year to die of taking not the correct medicines. And think about your loved ones, your brothers, your sister, your children, and having them taking those medicines that are not the real medicine, and they trust us that they purchase the real medicine. So it's really affecting all of us, and that's why it's such an important topic.
Yeah.
And therefore we also want to have your involvement. How can we solve this topic? Right?
And I think to add to that, I think the main issue for us as an airline and also a warehouse on the hub in Schiphol is that we don't have one reliable source that we can use worldwide to check if it's really an authentic medicine. And I think that is also part of this challenge. How can we normalize basically and create one reliable source for the worldwide industry to check if something is genuine or not?
Can I add one more number here? So what would you say is the number of medication that is not administered, a percentage?
30%.
It's higher.
60%.
Yeah, it's roughly 50 to 60% of all pharma products made are never administered, which basically means waste, and it's pure waste because there's no way of redistributing medication right now. It does happen. Off the record, but it's there are channels of redistributing medication, but there's, let's say, 60% of everything that we produce is direct waste. So that's also a problem that we try to solve. Is like if we can verify the critical to quality elements of our products, we should be able to help other people with that.
It's touching, it's touching our life and how we can be better towards the others, and also in reducing the waste. Okay, what is that we want here? What is our vision on pharmaceutical? And we start with pharmaceutical. I mean, we start with this very important topic, but then we can expand it to others, because everything that we as an airline or a forwarder we transport can be faked, can be manipulated. How can we make sure that it's genuine? So our vision is to create shared and standardized information infrastructure for our operations, for our chain. And we are here seated, we are three parties, the shipper, the forwarder, the airlines, but there's more parties within the chain. There is the trucking company. I think that trucking company is also in this room, okay, which you can address questions to you as well on what is your challenge. And customs is also involved. I think there's somebody from customs as well in this room or in the...
Well, actually, no.
Okay.
So customs is involved, Dutch customs, but they're also doing a huge event on changing the way Dutch customs work with 4,500 people. So the program manager for that is also on our challenge, but unfortunately not these 2 days.
Okay, good. But they are
They're
available
involved,
to
yes,
support
absolutely.
in any case. So, in order to reduce the risk in shipping fake goods, so to fight counterfeits, we want to enable the supply chain partner to share the data. Today we work in silos. As Armand was explaining before, how can we make sure that the data that is produced at the very first step of the supply chain is getting into the forwarder, and then the trucking company, and then the airline, and then etc. etc. We want to create a product identification system that will be impossible to break through, so that we want the trusted infrastructure. We want to make use of the technology to help us to be more reactive instead of passive in case of issues, right? And we talk also about the cool chain, and we talk also about making sure that we are transporting within the right temperature, because a lot of the medicines that we take are temperature sensitive, and we want to make sure that when it arrives to the patient, it's not disrupted. We want to set industry standards to be adopted by worldwide regulations. There are more and more regulations around specifically pharmaceutical, which is GDP, a good distribution practice. And I think that the idea is not to create more regulations and more rules, but we want to make sure that we have the right structure to make sure that there are no more rules in this. We want to have quick validations. We wanted to be fast in delivering the medicines, because if we have a quick validation, we also are able to release goods from authorities, from customs in a quicker way. And we want to have a closer to real-time data to ease the reaction time, also from authorities on smart analysis. And we want to have a trusted infrastructure and audit trailable. Anything to add? Anything I missed?
I think that's a good Christmas list for now. Yeah.
A lot, eh? So we launched, Kester, we launched this challenge because we want to have a secured, maybe you can take the word in here?
Yes, of course. This is how we do it together. And I think for you as a team, it's important to understand that last year I was at the hackathon as a Jedi on supply chain logistics. But for this challenge, what I learned to be successful as a team, you as a team and we as a challenge lead, is that you need multiple stakeholders. So this is why we said we need to do this with this group of people and co-create this protocol for authentication. Because if you build a solution, let's say on Ethereum and somebody else on Hyperledger and somebody else on that one, actually we need like a hyper protocol so we can connect. It's today's problem is that those silos can only connect through a relay game of data. And you lose data, you drop data, it's not on time, it's not correct, it's not complete. And so those are all today's problems. So that's why we said, we have an ecosystem here today for you. We have Enrica as business person, we have information management, I'm the compliance guy, and we have our customers right here. So what we can give you is the knowledge, extensive knowledge, and also the road feeder, Jan de Rijk, who is here, Stefan is here, so you can talk to him as well, because they're also one of the partners in moving those goods in a very trusted but also conditioned way. So what we're looking for is to break those data silos. What we're looking for is to gap the trust. Now trust has two things. We have spoken about the product, but trust is also about, it can be very commercial. Part of the information can be commercially very sensitive. That is also one of the key elements why people keep it in silos. Because, yeah, so what if I, as KLM Cargo, Air France KLM Martinair Cargo, it's a long one, right? I'll stick to KLM. So what if I, with my friends here, would say, DHL is giving me so much data, why wouldn't I go direct to MSD? So, and we're not doing that. Let me be very clear about that. But that could be a potential threat to any entity in the supply chain, and that's why the risk that we're looking for, the accountability, what happened if something goes wrong? Can we go all the way back? What happened to the shipment? And because of all these gaps, the authorities' kind of Pavlovian reaction is to get even more strict, even more oversight, which is slowing it down. And actually, it is hurting the supply chain, but also the patient care. Because if you add more regulations, you might stop a shipment that should be delivered to a patient real quickly. Or you're asking stuff that will take it out of bounds on the temperature and time kind of axis. So that's why we need this solution. And, well, it says there, transparent collaboration validation. But transparency, again, it has to do with who can see what. Otherwise, there will be no trust.
Yeah.
Was that long enough?
That was perfect. So in the panel here, we would like to share with you. I think that's we missed some. We can talk through. I think that's we have here a very simplified supply chain here with the shipper, with the forwarder, with the carrier. But also when it arrives at destination, there is also a forwarder involved, and there is also a final consignee who is taking the goods and then distribute it to the pharmacies. So in this panel discussion, we would like to express what is our challenges, what is the process flow, and what we expect out of it. So we start with you.
We start with the shipper, right? We manufacture our product. Our typical process flow here is, as I said, towards a wholesaler, towards a distribution center. 7 to 15 touch points, so physical handovers to different partners before it actually reaches the next step. And that is the first step. It can be 3-4 distribution centers afterwards. If you're looking at the more challenging areas in the world, it's even more than that. So you could see up to 50, 60 different handovers before it actually reaches a patient. Where we only hand it over, it leaves the fence, and it's gone, as far as we can see. So what is important for us? Temperature, for one. We ship a lot of vaccines across the world, a lot of oncology drugs that are very critical to temperature. Location, so we need to know where our product is. Product information, but that's, I would say, is a given. Making sure that we have an identification of what we actually ship and a specific identification of that unit, so the SKU number, if we want to go up to patient level. The process flow, we talk inside our company, plan to patient. It is plan to wholesaler, plan to distribution center, but we need a solution that bridges the gap between our paying customer and the patient. So, and that is a challenge that I think that I would give to the room, is like, how can we make sure that the data travels beyond our paying customer?
So up to the next silo, we as a forwarder, we need to adhere to the regulatory requirements, especially for shipping time and temperature sensitive medicines. So before we even receive the pharmaceuticals, for example, from our customer Merck, we already need to have a very robust plan in place that we can then also monitor. So once we do that and the shipment arrives at our facility, we need to obviously check, is the driver really the driver that collected the goods from Merck? We need to check the documentation. We also need to check the labeling and all the packaging and so on, to really make sure what we received is that also what's being shipped by our customer. And then we also need to make sure that these goods are stored in the correct temperature requirements. Can be, for example, 15 to 25 or 2 to 8 degrees Celsius. We store it there for a little while. Then we have to do the customs. We have to report it there. We have to create all the documentation to make sure that we can travel it via air freight or also via ocean freight. Then we are not using KLM, obviously. We store it temporarily. All these elements, all these milestones we need to record. We also need to be able to provide that data to our customers. And before we will move it to the air carrier, we also have to make sure that everything is labeled and that we deliver it what we call ready for carriage. So along all these milestones, we are still monitoring all these shipments so that we are really sure that we track all the relevant milestones. And in case of anything unexpected happening to the process, we also need to be able to intervene together with our stakeholders to make sure that the product is being kept safe and secured. Difficulty for us is that on the outside we are unable to see what's on the inside. But by process management we can really reduce the number of irregularities or counterfeit or having any temperature excursions. Then we go back to the next, which is the carrier.
I can try. I can try. Yeah, I think the exactly we have the same issues as forwarder. So again, we are also accepting, of course, the goods when, for instance, a truck arrives at the premises. So at that point of time, we check on the paperwork, so document acceptance and the physical acceptance. Again, looking at are the number of pieces correct and according to what's on the airway bill. But in the end, we're also not looking into the packages. So we cannot check again, are these really real medicines, yes or no? We can only check, okay, the paperwork is compliant with the physical goods that we see. And from there, we run the same process in the temperature checking, putting in sometimes into the cooling until it can be shipped by aircraft. So important to know and to understand is that at the moment that we accept the goods, so that we do the RCF, then we become basically accountable for the goods. So at that point in time, we are accountable for what we are shipping. And if that is fake, then we are the ones that will go to court. That is really happening in our world. So basically, that's what we want to prevent. I think that's quite clear. Kester, anything to add?
Thanks, Armand. And I think in view of time, because we want to leave room for you for questions. Now, in the previous session, what I saw is that there were some questions that maybe we should answer first before you can ask the question by doing the technological part. So let's see if we can get it.
Yeah, Sanne will also join on stage. I will do the first part, and then Sanne will finish off.
So if you want the real details, ask Sanne.
So to go really quickly, because I think it's good to have some time left for questions. In the end, I think it's important to understand that for KLM Cargo and also for Air France, of course, and Martinair, compliance is very strategic. So not to earn more money, but we really believe that if we have a good, compliant and secure system, that for sure we will have less penalties. That's one of the things. But also the negative branding, lean processes. As long as we can go more digital in the whole supply chain, what will that save on, in the end, on the medicine cost? At the moment, paper airway bills, 88% for KLM worldwide. But if you look at paperless in the air freight, I think it's less than 20%. And we're not talking about correct paperless. It means when we receive, let's say, a digital message in the supply chain or from the supply chain, it does not mean that it contains the right information. So sometimes we have to correct it. So if we can go back and feed and collect from a reliable source in the end-to-end supply chain, I really believe that we can save also money in the end product. For that, I think we're also investing a lot of money. So we also have a lot of money available for this initiative. We are not only looking into the anti-counterfeit, but we're also investing money in illicit wildlife. We're investing a lot of money in import controls, live animals, strategic goods. We just have live. So we really are working together with internal parties, something that we can arrange ourselves. So like the strategic goods, we can basically analyze data, and based on data, we can predict if something is strategic good, yes or no. Or dual use good, but on medicines it's more complex. You really need supply chain and the end-to-end to get into control.
Yeah, so based on all these challenges, we have created a tool from KLM, and I've been working for 2.5 years on this tool already. And first we started off with only an external customs, only the United States customs. But now we have increased over the past couple of years because a lot of compliance issues were piling up, and we really had to look into ways to put checks and screenings on those. So I will give you a short insight of what our compliance checker is doing at the moment. It's called CGO ACI. And basically what we do is we screen the data that we receive from all counterparties. We screen them on several topics. So CGO ACI consists of several modules, and most of the issues are covered by those checks. And basically what we do is we search, we screen, and we alert on it. So we present it in one monitor. So the end user can see one overall compliance status for every shipment, and it's displayed in a traffic light, where of course green means we're okay to fly it. We can send it. Amber means there's a need for investigation. It could either be a missing data element, but also it could be a real need for investigation. So there's some risk at sending these shipments. We really have to look into the counterparties or the goods or the documentation. And red means stop, do not load. And by stopping, we mean stop at origin, which is also a bit complicated because it's not always on the hub in Amsterdam, but it could be all over the world. So to take a more complex cargo supply chain, you see that there are a lot of steps and a lot of handovers in between. So it's really a difficult thing to verify the validity of your product throughout the whole supply chain. And for us to do the checks in the e-compliance checker, it's very important to be aware of two phases in this cargo supply chain. And the first one is actually the acceptance. At least for KLM, acceptance means that we accept a shipment physically on our domain. And from that point of time, we are held responsible for the content of that shipment. So our goal is to have all the checks done before acceptance. But of course, in real life, this is not always possible. Sometimes messages are too late. So we do have a window that will lead us latest prior to departure. Because when the shipment, the plane is gone, then it's very hard to take any action. So we make use of three messages: the booking, which is the first data we receive, but it's not a formal contract. So we also include the airway bill, which is the contract between the handler and the forwarder, but it does not include all the addresses and information from the shipper. So we also use the houseway bill for that, which is the contract between the forwarder and the shipper. So basically what we then want to do with those data, to do all the checks and hopefully also include counterfeit in some possibilities in these checks to give one overall compliance status for us.
So last minute, I think important to understand is that after the hackathon, we really believe that we want to do some micro implementations together with our partners, because we have the technology available to connect to. So basically what we ask from you to build is also a connector that is open and usable for our parties that are involved now in this hackathon team. Of course, it needs to include authentication and shipment based on the contract and the booking. Then we can do our compliance checks, so authentication and validation. And in the end, when the validation of the product and that system is working well, we can integrate that in the front end, in the acceptance tool that we use to check, do we really want to accept the shipment, yes or no? So first of all, integration with the booking system. Second to that, integration with the acceptance digital front-end solution. And for more details, of course, we are welcome to help you out.
Thank you, Armand.
Yeah.
Great. Excellent timing, by the way, guys. Look at that. So we have 15 minutes left. I want to add one thing to this challenge, because you have been hearing us that we as business sector are doing our own validations and screening. There's obviously one more. When you travel to the US, what do you need as a passenger? ESTA, passport and ESTA. And the ESTA is always 72 hours prior to getting on a plane. If you don't have ESTA, we don't let you board the plane. So on the cargo side, we have the same thing. It's called ACAS. And so what Sanne actually said before, ACAS was the first module that we built. What is so important about this model is that what we are changing there is that we do not do the validation. We provide a limited subset of data to Customs Border Protection in the US. They do the risk analysis and the targeting, and they come back with a referral. They have 12 distinct referrals that they will give back to us, and they end up in our monitor. So again, two models. One is we do it ourselves. The other one is an outside and a regulatory body does it and gives us just the result of that, because they have some very secret information that we do not have access to, and they don't want to share it because we're the bad guys, we're the businesses. No, I'm kidding. We work very well together. So, up to you guys. How many teams are going to join us? We have here the panel for your questions, so I suggest fire away. Okay, I'll start there.
Thank you. First, congratulations about the professional setup here, and I think we actually hit a case that we could support with blockchain. One of the few.
Was that a sales pitch?
Okay. It's a sales pitch for you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. No, thank you very much.
But I have a question. All the results that are being made in this track, are they also open source? Could all other parties use the
Excellent
results?
question. Excellent question. So the question is everything that we are building here open source? Actually, I should ask Armand about all that, but let me say something first about compliance. Compliance has to do, I'm not a competitor there. When it comes to the boom, the burn, and the balance is about flight safety, I will work with any competitor any day to make sure that the flight safety is guaranteed. That's my basic layer, my Maslow pyramid of compliance, if you will. So I'm open to working together, and so the protocol I'm looking for is exactly to connect, but I think we should think about metadata. So which entity in the supply chain has which data? And is it open? Can we use that data, access the data or not? Is it something that's commercially sensitive or pricing? Because we have anti-competition laws. We're not allowed to share pricing information. So I think there's variation to that. But Armand, please.
Yeah, I think that's the reason why we're here today. So the reason why we're here today is not to build something for us, but to build something for the community, which is open. Of course, restricted to all data elements that are only needed for the purpose. So in our case, a yes, a no, or a maybe is most probably good enough. So it's a request reply service should work. But yes, in my opinion, open.
Thomas. Three? We have other people in the room, right? You have my phone number, you have Sanne's email address, so okay, you get one. You get one. I want to leave room to the others. I'll come up to you because otherwise I have to repeat it, and you always have these complicated questions. I'm sure I'll make a mess of it.
So, sure. So it's one is not really to answer now. It's for to be posted on the portal for this challenge, and it would be: can we have some examples of the standard you use for the communication, or example of the data set? Maybe not a complete data set, but some examples.
Yes or no?
Again, sorry?
Description
Sample of data set,
standard
yes.
and examples of the messages exchanged.
Yes, we can.
So that is very simple. Okay. The other very simple one is are there jurisdictions which are more interesting? So from you out to you, what are the most interesting jurisdiction for looking into this? Because different jurisdiction requires different data. So yeah. So if I ship a pharmaceutical from Italy to the Netherlands, it's one type of requirements. But if I ship it from the Netherlands to Arabia, it's another type of requirement. So are there more interesting jurisdictions for this, or whatever we pick.
It's like a complicated or a simple one to begin with, actually. Yeah? So because I think let's go back to blockchain projects in general. I think what I love about this challenge is that you have here already a part of a social ecosystem. The only problem I see, and I know you and I have been connected to the EU IPO Blockathon, the Intellectual Property Observatory. And I think the problem we're facing now is that if we want to solve world peace in one go, it won't work. So I think what we are looking for is a simple pilot. So it's the protocol layer plus a use case, which today is the pharmaceutical one, and maybe next year a different one. Because we need to prove that we have something that will work. So I will ask the question to our customers whether they have a very specific lane or jurisdiction in mind for this pilot. If you have an example, say, well, if there's something that will work and we have proper information on that we can share with the team so they understand what we are facing, which one would you choose?
Good question.
Just take one.
So, just the top of my hand. So we ship a lot to the UNICEF and WHO customers, where we lose as a shipper visibility pretty quickly. Our handover is pretty quick in the process, but it's the most challenging markets out there. So we would love to have a tool in place that also helps our NGOs out in identification and verification of our products. That doesn't cost the world to us, but also gives us a little bit of visibility into their processes to help each other out. Does that help?
Yeah,
Africa
I think
maybe?
it does because I'll come to you.
It's mainly Africa,
Africa.
Latin America.
And so I think it's also you gave me also time to think. Thank you. It's also about customs entities, because we also want this green lane stuff. So I know Dutch customs will be there, and we are talking to CBP, the US customs. I do hear that their president has some problems with the travel budget that he allows them. But apart from that, they are very, very active and interested in counterfeit. They also have a group that is looking at blockchain. So I think we should be practical here. If we can get, let's say, Austrian customs or Dutch customs or Italy customs on board, and they're willing to bring knowledge and like a Jedi, a person to the hackathon, that's where I would begin, because it's really about growing our ecosystem and growing the solutions. I'll give you the mic.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Kaspar from Gimli, and I really appreciate your challenge as well. I fully agree it's one of the most suitable for blockchain solutions. I am wondering, you are all here, and a lot of stakeholders coming together looking for a rather specific solution, and I'm pretty sure that you'll probably also be working maybe on it yourself with maybe other partners. Can you tell us what are the main challenges that you are facing yourself in solving this, given that you have the stakeholders on board, which is usually the most difficult challenge in these questions?
You have the question. You have the answer.
Thanks again. Yeah.
I
think you said it already. It's the it's the paperless, right?
It's paperless now. Yeah, I think let's say it differently. Why are we not starting? Of course, we're starting. We're starting today. I think why are we not doing it ourselves? I think I just also talked with somebody in the audience about it, and I think it's really about, are we going to change the whole world with KLM? I don't think so. So if we're going to start it up, we can find one or two partners to join. But I think a lot of cases in the world, if you look at blockchain developments and pilots, you see failing because it starts at one or two parties and people have a doubt, okay, are they really trying to gain more money out of it? Or is it really to make the world a little bit better? And I think the reason why we are here is really to try to make the world a little bit better. So start with something which is open, where people can connect to and don't have a doubt about, okay, it's only about the gain and about more profitability.
But I would also like to highlight that we are currently already in touch. We have it's called Pharma.arrow. So that's a program where we are already involved with shippers, with trucking companies, with airlines, with forwarders, to see how can we communicate amongst each other to make sure that we can provide more visibility what's happening with the shipments across the whole supply chain. But there, what's typical, what is withholding us from that is that, for example, we have as DHL, we are investing in data analytics, we are investing in risk assessments and so on. So therefore, we have a competitive advantage towards maybe other forwarders, where other forwarders are also investing, trucking companies are investing, and therefore they do not want to share all that data publicly so that others can benefit from it. And the other side is that also from the shipper side, there's also, it's sensitive information regarding the products that they are not allowed to share or just give it to the public there. So we are looking for a solution that's the data that is needed for a closer supply chain, that we can guarantee what's happening at every moment, and that only the party that really needs that specific portion of information, that can be made available for them. So therefore, blockchain could be a good solution for it, so that you still have that integrity, that you're not sharing everything with all parties, but only the necessary at that right moment. And because it's also important that it's happening in real time. If something is happening with the shipment now and we only find out 6 hours afterwards, somebody could do something with the shipment, change maybe the packaging, put a different product in, and then you already have those counterfeit medicines there. So,
and I would be interested as a shipper manufacturer to what the technical solution would look like, because it's probably something that we will have to apply on our packaging lines.
So think about data loggers as well. Imagine today that every entity is getting questions about how are you making sure that time and temperature limits were observed. So what if we all, on our own, put in our own tracking device with our own data logging, with our own silos again? And I think also a lot of solution providers have their own proprietary setup. And they're like, okay, yeah, you can use my data loggers, but you cannot give access to any other people. And I also have a question for Stefan from Jan de Rijk, because you have multiple customers. KLM is not your only customer. So my question to you is, what impact does all these closed situations, because your trucks have location, GPS, your trucks have maybe cool chain kind of capabilities. What difficulty do you have in sharing that? What are you up against?
Our biggest challenge normally is that we have a lot of data available, but we cannot get rid of it, or we can only share it with you, for example, but not with all the other customers, because there's no clear data protocol or whatsoever.
So it's closed and all that. I see many hands, but I also see one very important hand there saying I have 1 more minute. So what I would like to do for now is that I will ask our team to stay behind here a little bit, so you can come to us, ask questions. In March there will be a webinar where Armand and Sanne and other people will help you to answer more in-depth questions. We're looking forward to your questions. We have the same questions. We don't always have the answers, but we are very excited to embark on this path with you. As I learned this morning, you can go slower in the wrong direction, or you could also have a pivotal way of thinking and say, no, let's turn around. This will not end well if we continue. So thank you very much for your attention. Thank the panel, please, for me.